We're going to go through example 6 for our notes for 4.5. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to get our equation into our transformation form. Okay, so we want to rewrite this y equals -3. That's okay there. Cosine. Then we want to factor out the 2. So we'd have 2 times x. When we factor out the 2, we divide each of these terms by 2. So this becomes minus pi over 2. And then the minus 4 can stay. So thinking about our transformations, our a is -3, our b is 2, our c is negative pi over 2, and our d is -4. Okay, so our phase shift, that is a fancy word for our horizontal shift. So our horizontal shift, we look at C. Since C is negative, that means we're moving right by pi over 2. Our period is always defined by 2 pi divided by our b. Okay, so 2 pi divided by 2 is pi. So that means every pi units, our graph is going to be repeating. This is important too. Think about it. A b of 2 means that we should have a horizontal shrink by a factor of 1/2, right? Remember, if it's inside the parentheses, we use the inverse. So instead of multiplying by 2, we're dividing by 1/2. So think if the general period for cosine is 2 pi, if we shrink it by 1/2, our period is pi. So our amplitude is the absolute value of A. Okay, so A, the absolute value of -3 is 3. Our vertical shift involves D, so I can see that I'm going down by 4 units. And I wait to do my domain and my range until I've finished my graphing. Okay, so we're using transformations again. Okay, so these are my parent value table, right? So this is actually my XO and my YO for my parent cosine graph. Okay, so at 0, my cosine is 1. At pi over 2, my cosine is 0. At pi, -1, and so on. So I'm going to do a little bit of work down here, but I see that my x sub 0, this is the same as transformations that we've done before, is now 2x minus pi. So solving for x, I get x0 plus pi equals 2x. I divide everything by 2. So my x is going to be x sub 0 plus pi divided by 2. Okay, so I always do my pi's first. x0 plus pi is pi divided by 2. This becomes pi over 2. Pi plus pi gives me 2 pi divided by 2 is pi. 2 pi plus pi is 3 pi divided by 2. I get 3 pi over 2. Now think about it. My period needed to be pi. So from my start to my finish should be pi. So 3 pi over 2 minus pi over 2 gives me 2 pi over 2, which is pi. So that's a good sign so far. A couple options here. One, you just know that the values here are going to be in the middle of pi over 2 and pi. So I know that between pi over 2 and pi is 3 pi over 4. Okay, also if I did this with arithmetic, pi over 2 plus pi would give me 3 pi over 2, divided by 2 would give me the 3 pi over 4. Also, between pi and 3 pi over 2, I know that I am at 5 pi over 4. Okay, now my y. my y is going to be -3 times my original y minus 4. So y is going to be -3 y sub 0 minus 4. So -3 minus 4 is -7. 0 minus 4 is -4. -1 times -3 is 3. Minus 4 is -1. -3 times 0 is 0. Minus 4 is -4. And -3 times 1 is -3, so -7. So now it's time to graph. Okay, so I can see I need to go by pi over 4 units, and I need to get 2 periods in. So I am going to make this, I'm going to make every 2 ticks pi over 4. So this is pi over 4, 2 pi over 4, right, which is pi over 2. So it was getting too crowded. 3 pi over 2, 4 pi over 2, which is, 1 pi over 4, 2 pi over 4, 3 pi over 4, 4 pi over 4, which is pi. This would be 3 pi over 2. This would be 2 pi. Okay, and then I'm going to go in the same direction here. So this is negative pi over 2, negative pi, negative 3 pi over 2, negative 2 pi. Now looking at my y's, I need to go from -7 to -1. Okay, so here I'm going to go, this is going to be 2, -4, -8. Okay, you don't have to label every tick mark. You just have to be consistent with your scale. And now we're just going to graph from the table. So at pi over 2, I'm down at -7. At 3 pi over 4, I'm at -4. At pi, I'm at -1. At 5 pi over 4, I'm back at -4. And at 3 pi over 2, I'm at -7. So I now have 1 period of my graph. So the way I use patterns, I notice that I go down, middle, up, middle, down. So that same horizontal distance, I'm going back middle, then up, and then in the other direction, I'm going down, middle, up, middle, down, middle, up, middle, down, middle, up, middle, down, middle, up, middle. And then I'm drawing in, it's a cosine wave. So it should look like a wave. It shouldn't be pointed. It's a nice smooth curve. That looks like this. Okay, I want arrows at both ends to show that it returns. Now I can fill in my information about my domain and my range. So my domain, I can see that this is all real numbers, so -infinity to infinity in interval notation. In my range, I can see that my smallest value is -7 and my highest value is -1. And those values are included, so I have brackets on either end. Okay, we are using the same process as transformations. You want to make sure that you show at least 2 periods. So a period is every time that it makes a repeat. So here's 1 period, here's 2 periods. I actually show over 3 periods. Okay, so I've made sure that I graphed at least 2 periods. You also want to be careful that you're using all of your space. A lot of times I get the graph just from here to here, okay? And people leave the rest of this blank. You want to complete the graph so that you're showing that it continues for your domain of all real numbers. Okay, these take practice. I know that you can all do it. Like I said, it just takes practice. If you're confused, please come for extra help.